Cozy. Hi, guys.
Now we're ready. Now we're
Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Siobhan Hagan, and I'm the coordinator of a relatively new project at the Smithsonian Institution, which is in the United States. And the project's called the Audiovisual Media Preservation Initiative. Let's just call it AVMPI from here on out. Various members of the AVMPI team have been introducing the project at conferences throughout this last year, so I'm sorry if you've already seen some of these slides before. We do modify each presentation slightly to make sure that there's something special and new for everyone. So along those lines, some of the team will be presenting at the Association of Moving Image Archivists annual conference next week. Please check out that presentation if you're attending that conference. I'm very fortunate today to have our video and audio preservation specialists for the initiative, Brianna and Dan, here to present with me. Thanks, Dan. AVMPI is part of the Smithsonian Institution, as I said, which is technically a quote-unquote instrumentality of the United States federal government, and it was founded in 1846 to increase the diffusion of knowledge. While we are not officially a national repository, our extremely unique and incredible collections do chronicle a vast array of American experiences and global scientific research, and the collections number in the tens of millions. AVMPI is a pan-institutional initiative designed to service the audiovisual component of said collections across the Smithsonian's 21 museums, research centers, and a zoo. This slide is another way of looking at and considering the vastness of the Smithsonian, which we like to say is the world's largest museum complex. And our main AVMPI partner, museums, archives, and what we call them, they're also research centers, but we just call them units. So if I use that word, that's what I'm referring to. It could be a museum, could be an archive center, could be a research center or a zoo. These are highlighted, our main partners are highlighted in red. About a third of the audiovisual collections managers across the institution have given their time to serve on AVMPI's task force, which helped to establish the project, which I'll talk a little bit about. I know Blake McDowell from our African American History Museum is in attendance today and was a founding AVMPI task member, so thank you to Blake. And Kira Sobers and Crystal Sanchez might be attending virtually, so a big shout out to them too. While the AVMPI project officially launched in 2021, it's the direct result of efforts that have been in motion since 2014, when the Smithsonian's media archivists and collections folks applied for and received funding to study how they might undertake larger scale AV preservation efforts across the organization. Many of the AVMPI staff and stakeholders today were a part of that initial work. Since that time, there's been a big push for creating more item-level inventories and format counts of audiovisual materials. That has now been completed for about 11 of the Smithsonian units. Alison Repert-Gerber, the head of the AVMPI initiative, and our colleague Kira Sobers led these crucial first efforts, and many others from the AV preservation community, like the staff of Community Archiving Workshop, in particular Kelly Hicks, served as expert contract consultants to make it all happen. And here we have the most up-to-date numbers that we have for our participating units, identifying 293,586 audiovisual assets, with a little over half of those being audio and the rest being split between video and motion picture film. The top 5 formats in quantity identified were compact audio cassettes, quarter-inch open reel audio tape, 16mm film, VHS, and grooved audio disc. Several things to keep in mind here. These numbers reflect only 8 of the 21 units that comprise the Smithsonian. And also, many of these items may be copies that need to be identified or secondary migrations. And also, this does not count post-2018 accessions or unaccessioned backlogs, which there are most certainly many, since it's now almost been 5 years since the numbers were counted. Because each unit has its own discrete administrative structure, data system, history, funding, and staffing challenges, AVMPI needs to serve them all in different ways, just like this omelet station. For example, some units may need assistance processing a collection, discussing materials for rehousing, or best practices for storage. Others may rely on us to handle all vendor communications, provide in-house digitization and QC work, or to assist with grant writing. We're here to help and collaborate in any way that we can. AVMPI wants each unit to have their AV preservation omelets made their way, while also preparing them consistently and following best omelet cooking practices and standards. Here's the core team at the omelet station, funded by an internal Smithsonian grant called the Nationals Collections Program. We're all relatively new, 4 of us started this year. We don't have time today to discuss everyone's roles and responsibilities, but I do want to say that I personally am thrilled to be working with such an amazing and knowledgeable group of expert humans. Now I'm going to hand it over to Dan.
Hi. Okay, talk a little bit about the transfer suites. Our team is distributed physically across various Smithsonian locations. We currently have 2 active transfer suites, one in downtown DC on the left here, in the building that houses our Smithsonian Libraries and Archives office. That's was one of the red dots. It's the administrative unit we fall under. This serves as our central hub to service the libraries and archives' own collections, collections that may require intensive remediation or processing work, or collections on the National Mall that don't otherwise have capacity or space. Our other lab in the center here is at a beautiful building, the Museum of the American Indians Cultural Resource Center, which is out in Maryland, where we help service their collections as well as items from the neighboring anthropological and historical holdings in an adjacent facility. We're currently working on augmenting the existing lab in the Museum of American History, which is to the right here, and that's on the National Mall as well. Now, these are all spaces designed to service collections at high levels of quality, but ideally they're our home on a temporary basis. Long term, we're hoping to scale up and build one lab to rule them all. In Landover, Maryland, where our exhibitions preparation for the museums and our central conservation lab for other materials currently is. And rather than using existing spaces like we are now, this will likely be a ground-up, purpose-built facility. So it feels a bit of a shame to do a breezing over the very multitudinal and deeply fascinating collections and subjects we're serving, because they're amazing. But we'll have to come back with more details for you next year or some other time about some of the specific projects we've been working on and the unique challenges they pose in future presentations. For now, know that we've already worked with tapes that have been to space, preserved films about Tupperware, are checking out planetarium presentations and lectures, and are also preserving crucial administrative proceedings from indigenous groups in the US, just to name a few. And we're really just getting started. I will say one obvious yet also mysterious reality is that much of the data that you saw earlier that was created to and used to justify the dire need for the project, which is very real, is rather relative. Secondary migrations and historically unsystematic cataloging mean that we might have some 300,000 analog AV items, but we're not charged with digitizing everything. Where efforts that may be considered mass digitization would answer a question normally with digitize it, our project lets us say, well, it depends for a number of reasons. And I think in 2023, it's great to be part of an initiative that's built upon this ethos. One of the other unique things about AVMPI is that it's positioned as an internal Smithsonian resource generator as well as a digitization initiative. In addition to creating digital files, we get to participate in and create documentation around Smithsonian-wide and beyond goals, and try to be problem solvers and standard setters in a way that's useful in real time to us. But this way, we also provide guidance and support for the units we are working with in the process. Unifying our preservation methodologies, metadata standards, and trying to find gaps we have time to fill is part of the goal. And they can serve as a model for developing processes in the first place, or that the units can take and mold to meet their own needs. I should say that, give credit where credit is due. We're not reinventing the wheel, and we're pulling from the community as well as Smithsonian processes that already exist and work well. and there's precedent for open and open source work at Smithsonian already, as I'm sure many of you know. Seen here are some of the tools and communities we're in the process of making or are making active contributions to, and you'll hear about projects related to Matryoshka and Fagi here at No Time to Wait that we have some involvement in. As we build this documentation that we're talking about, we'll be updating these GitHubs up here in order to make these tools and documents available to the broader community. In the interest of keeping this an open project and leveraging our resources to work for folks beyond our project. A scarce and important resource that's vital to all this work is equipment. There's a wide variety of existing equipment throughout Smithsonian, much of which was used to create the materials we're now preserving. A large part of our project is consulting the units that are more focused on reference than preservation for very legitimate reasons, but trying to ensure that when a media item is run, it's according to preservation best practices, so there's a lower likelihood that we'll have to touch it again in the future due to something suboptimal. Currently, we're evaluating existing equipment at the various labs, running test tapes, ensuring things are nice and clean and to spec, and augmenting the workstations with more flexibility, more inputs and outputs, and more nimble workflows. We're also purchasing more equipment to do things like turn a single stream cassette workstation into a parallel stream cassette workstation, upgrade our quarter-inch tape machines, or simply figure out who in the area might be able to provide assistance when something goes boom. Audio and video have slightly different needs, though, so I want to pass this microphone over to Brianna to continue this topic.
Thank you, Dan. So, to supplement the existing inventory of equipment that AVMPI inherited, we have taken advantage of multiple free donations from folks in the DC area, other SI units, and are budgeting to strategically acquire more equipment, as Dan just mentioned. But acquisition is only the first step. And I lost my place. Thank you. Even though we have a considerable amount of equipment, much of it was not fully functional. For this reason, we're rolling out a maintenance and repair plan as part of our effort to make the initiative a sustainable one. Getting equipment has also required reassessing the physical space where all of it's going to go and realizing that we need more space and that the spaces we have need to be modified. Although we have managed to increase the square footage of where we can work, this involved negotiating with stakeholders and facilities at multiple locations and getting creative with the workspace so it's utilized to its full efficiency. For example, at our main space in Capitol Gallery, which you can see here on the left, we had to remove all the built-in countertops to open up the wall space and pack in as much gear as possible. As a new initiative, we are also responsible for developing all of our own workflows and refining them as we go. It's a little bit like flying the plane before it's built. Due to AVMPI serving multiple units who all use their own standards and content management systems, we needed a nimble platform that allowed us to be modular and flexible so our workflows and the metadata we produce are unit agnostic. Our Airtable workspace reflects this modular approach and how it was designed, containing multiple bases that are determined by function, specific components of our workflow, such as projects, digital assets, physical asset tracking, equipment inventories, tasks, and even budgeting. We also utilize many of Airtable's features, such as interfaces for reporting project progress to the units that we serve. I'm not going to go into Airtable too extensively, but we just want to give you a sense of how we work. And basically, all of these bases are connected through linked data, automatic syncing, a feature within Airtable, and customized automations. The image here on the right is a schema of everything that is linked in just one of our bases. So you can get an idea of what it looks like on a much broader scale with everything in our workspace. Currently, we have automations for when assets fail QC, when they're ready for QC, if assets need a conservation treatment like baking, rehousing, and for communicating project updates to the team. But we have plans to hire a contractor to script more involved workflow integrations for us in the new year. And this would involve really making a lot of the manual things we're doing now, automated tasks like running our media conch policies, embedding metadata, moving files to and from hot folders, and also creating a GUI for recording data during the transfer process. And that brings me to our hopes, dreams, and schemes. So we're introducing the project to you now, but we want to do that because we still have so much we want to do. So in addition to kind of enhancing the automations and really making the way we work fully functional, the repair and maintenance go hand in hand with expanding our in-house capabilities and throughput. If our in-house capabilities increase, so does the sustainability of AVMPI through demonstrable self-reliance. With new and refurbished equipment, we also hope to expand upon the formats we can transfer in-house and diversify the decks used for transfer to assist with troubleshooting and provide as many options as possible for us to explore. Collaborations with open source tools and communities such as yourselves is also something we want to pursue. Currently, we're using vRecord and DV Rescue for video transfers, but we have volunteered to be a test site for our Digital Video Commander project and secured funds for a film scanner in 2024. So once film begins to be scanned in-house, we will definitely be starting to use raw cooked and to finish developing our Choose Your Own Film Spec Adventure Twine site to help other units determine what specs they should ask for from vendors to best suit their needs. Another project that's near and dear to my heart, as well as my colleagues, is collecting and sharing what we have nicknamed anecdata to combat knowledge obsolescence. A potential project related to this we have discussed is partnering with other SI departments to scan equipment manuals to build a free manual database under the banner of Smithsonian's educational directives. And last, as an institution with diverse specialized scientists and conservators, we are interested in conducting studies of preservation practices to transform that anecdata into empirical evidence that can be published. So if you have any questions for us, are working on a project or developing AV tools for AV preservation, think of us as a potential testing ground or collaborator and reach out. Here are all of our emails again. If you're not sure who to contact, you can just use our general email and we'll direct you to who you should talk to. We also have a project website where you can find embeds to our quarterly YouTube streamcast featuring digitized content, profiles of the Smithsonian audiovisual staff, and other cool info. And then we also brought you some very cool swag, which is out in the hallway. So please help yourself. Thank you.
Any questions?
Hi, one question from the chat from remote participant. Do you have a maintenance plan for the legacy equipment, example, the U-matic tape machine, as these may no longer be manufactured?
Yes, so a maintenance plan is something that we've been working on recently since that didn't exist previously. So we're in the process of creating a timeline for regular maintenance, repair, and a budget for all of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, the first part was just going around all of those units, about like 5 or 6 really that have a lot of equipment, including tons of U-matic decks, and then inventorying them, making sure that they're worthwhile with their outputs to even consider for maintenance and things like that. So that was a lot of work, not just for the U-matics, but also the audio, to inventory, see, like, that's just the first level of what do you have, right? And then the work of finding vendors and making a big list of vendors too. So if you're in the US and are looking for vendors for something, we are trying to maintain a list as well, so reach out about that.
Then you had a great list of all the fascinating stuff you've encountered so far, but for the 3 of you, what's been the most exciting content you've laid your hands upon so far?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned tapes that were taken to space, and those were mixtapes. If you're familiar with the astronaut Sally Ride, they were like mixtapes that she was listening to when she went, very far up in the air.
We also helped digitize some videotapes from the artist Nancy Spiro, but they were more of her home collection. So one thing I really like about things like that is you can see what they taped with, like, their lectures, like what television programs or shows. So it's kind of like this autobiographical list of their interests that they didn't think anyone would notice.
Yeah, I'd have to say one thing that I want us to transfer that's on the list is Air and Space, National Air and Space Museum allegedly has a recording of Laika, the Soviet dog that went into space, of the heartbeat that a U.S. satellite captured. So I'm pretty excited about that. But yes, we have a lot of panda videos coming back from a vendor soon, as well from the zoo. Because actually we recently sent the pandas back, went back to China. And also people love pandas. And and then we're also getting back from a vendor some D2 tapes, video from the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Recently acquired the JPC collection, Johnson Publishing Company collection, which they owned Ebony Magazine and a TV channel, I'm pretty sure, or had a TV program. So there's at least 10,000 audiovisual assets from just that collection alone. So we'll be getting some D2 back from that. So keep your eyes peeled and stay in touch.
Hi, congratulations, very nice project.
Thank you.
I'm a little bit worried about technological obsolescence, of course, and the legacy equipments. You are dealing with a huge, really huge institution or entities under the umbrella of huge institutions. But we as a community has to start to think about smaller institutions, smaller countries, where access to those kind of equipment is not possible, or even contexts where people prefer to sell to collectors, equipment collectors, than to institutions like Studer or whatever. So we are fighting in a way. We are all talking about a positive kind of approach, but in fact, in real life, the things doesn't happen always in this way. So should we start to consider some kind of a task force or coalition to keep up this equipment working and accessible, not only about the manuals, but only, why not, recreating equipment specifically for the archival community? Just a thought. We can put satellites on space. We put it Laika up there. Why cannot we design new tape machines or videotape machines, whatever?
My big thing, our big thing is being a resource is just transparency. Like, so much of what we're doing is because y'all put your information out there, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel on that end. So that's the first thing that I think is the most important, is open access to information.
Yeah, I think, I know I feel lucky working at the Smithsonian because we can actually utilize just the fact that they're a research institution to pursue some of these projects that were prohibitive before. The manual database is a perfect example of that because of copyright law, and everyone was very worried about that. Also, the time of scanning, we have a department that could do that for us. And so I think we really want to take advantage of working at that institution to pursue these projects where they felt kind of stuck because there wasn't the right support or the right backing.
Pitch rollers are protected by companies like pinch rollers in tape machines. How come?
Yeah, that's a great question. IP, I guess, right? One of the other things, once these labs are sort of at kind of humming along, that I'm really interested in exploring is, particularly with audio, I think as you mentioned, it's like there's a whole kind of studio community that's still interested in, getting the warmth of a tape machine. And so it's really driven up the prices of a lot of this stuff. The Tascam decks that everyone uses, 5 years ago were, $200 or $300 because they were in every installation job in America, and now they're like $900. Yeah. So I'm wondering if they're like part of what I'm interested in doing is maybe doing some testing to see if maybe the Denon 3-head deck is just as reliable and just as we've created these sort of archival standards, and I think they exist for a reason in terms of equipment purchasing. But I think there's probably quite a lot of equipment that could work. The issue with that is, especially with quarter-inch tape machines, it's like if you become both an Otari house and a Studer house, then you have to find the Otari person and the Studer person to come around to do maintenance rounds. So, it's as I'm sure many of you know, it's difficult, but yeah.
And one other thing I wanted to say is that we really mean it, that we're open to collaboration. This might be getting ahead of myself, but other departments like the Folklife Center went to Turkey. There was projects in Haiti where they collaborated with archives that didn't have equipment and provided equipment and training, and that's something I really hope that we can do, which is also why we're stockpiling equipment that maybe we don't need but could donate at some point. So like the possibilities are potentially endless. I know that was one reason why this job was so appealing to me, is that that actually felt possible.
Yes, and we also have other colleagues within the Smithsonian that have started work in community archiving. C.K. Ming is at the National Museum of African American History and Culture, and they are in charge of the Community Curation Project, which uses their specialized equipment and invites the public to come. And they actually have a truck that they take around, and recently went to Nashville, I believe, and New Orleans. And it's just free digitization open to the public, and you don't necessarily have to donate a copy either. So these are all community archiving, other projects and groups that we're just wanting to connect with and utilize the resources that we have in ways, because yes, we are a federal entity. I like that word, entity. Thank you. I'm going to use that.
Thank you for that question and those great responses. That's all we have time for. Can we give Brianna, Siobhan, and Dan an applause?
Thank you.